This is significant for us to remember here, this commemoration here at Point Alpha, where German and American soldiers stood shoulder to shoulder, and we stood with our NATO allies in freedom. So it's kind of hard for us 22 years later, after the last patrol of the 11th ACR, to understand what took place here. It's kind of difficult as you see the remaining fence line behind us that separated East and West Germany, to realize that you were separated from family and loved ones, and you also didn't have a choice to determine what your future would be. So as we've stood together over time, we made it through the Cold War, which was a time period of uncertainty and concern, fear. We now get an opportunity to see students and see our German allies and friends standing shoulder to shoulder on Freedom's Hill.
Welcome to the tower here at OP Alpha. That stands for Observation Post, and this is literally, well, the center of the observation post as far as that function is concerned. I'm supposed to be a Zeitzeugen, which means a witness to history, and this is what it looked like. This is exactly what it looked like. It hasn't changed at all. We were divided up into three groups. We had a team that manned the tower 24 hours a day. We had a team that did the communications back up all the way to Washington, D.C., through Fulda, Frankfurt, and up back to headquarters, maybe at the Pentagon. And we had another group that was doing constant patrols. So we would receive orders to go out and maybe drive 30 miles to some point along the border, maybe Tann or someplace like that. And then we would walk along the border for 10 kilometers and see what was going on, making sure that there was nothing happening unusual. Nobody was coming over the border who wasn't supposed to be. We weren't trying to keep people out, of course, but we wanted to know if things were happening. We would observe what was going on along the border. We would stand here and we would watch any activity. We'd see quite a few East German border soldiers going up and down on this road. There was a real system to the boundary. There was a border zone, das heißt auf Deutsch Grenzgebiet. American soldiers were not allowed within 1 kilometer of the border. There were signs up, and we had to stay away from the border so we didn't cause any international incidents. The only exception was when you were assigned to be here. On the East German side, we'd occasionally see a farmer cutting the hay here, but normally we would see just the East German border soldiers using that concrete path there. They would drive along in Trabants. There were soldiers who would come along and they'd get into those bunkers over there and they'd keep an eye on us. That's the border right there, where it turns at the corner there. You can see the road turns, and that was our view of East Germany. We didn't have a big visual view here. We could see down to Geisa, and we could just see this activity. So the border was right there, and then the fence was there, and then there was the patrolling. The East German soldiers patrolled behind the fence because they weren't being controlled as well. They were not supposed to be able to just step over the border. They probably would have if they could have. So they were behind the fence. And then there was another fence somewhere back there at the edge of the woods, I would say, or a little bit beyond, which was the second fence, basically. And so there was a whole series of controls that kept people. First of all, you couldn't even drive around over there if you didn't live in the area with a special permit, because they wanted to keep the border zone pretty empty, basically. So there was not a lot of people there, but you did see people driving around in their Trabants when you were at these observation points along the border, and it was always interesting to wonder what were they thinking, how was their life. We had no ability to communicate with them, we had no contact, we were not allowed to wave. It would cause an international incident maybe if we gave them a gesture, or we told them we were better or something like that. So we always just stood there stoic, and just watched them. They watched us. They didn't give us symbols. We didn't give them symbols. There was no communication. It was a kind of very strange world. Our job expanded though to the whole region as far as the military was concerned. The rest of the time we were out here. We were planning, we were thinking, we were training, and we were in very high state of readiness in the U.S. military. The entire 11th ACR would be in the field, could be in the field in 2 hours basically, all the time. It was a very stressful situation because you needed to be ready to take everything you needed. My area of responsibility beyond the border was actually Rasdorf. This is the town right here. I was in the woods here literally very often for 3 years.